Why is he shirtless?
That's your first question?
Why didn't you drink the shot, Cole?
Why is he shirtless?
Cole.
Why'd you take my blood?
Cole.
Okay, fine. I wanted you to think I was Cole, so... Why is his shirt covered in blood?
Because no one would let me borrow a shirt.
Oh my god. Does he not even see the mirror behind him? We can see you cutting the rope.
Hey guys, what's happening? Niyat here with Film Comics Explained. Halloween is quickly approaching, so it's time to stream all those spooky films you haven't seen yet. If you're not a big fan of actually getting scared, but are a fan of the general horror movie aesthetic, 2017's The Babysitter is the perfect movie for you. It's a high-energy horror comedy that subverts traditional slasher tropes, making it great for the more nostalgic viewer who's looking for fun without any nightmare fuel attached. McGee's The Babysitter, not to be confused with the 1995 movie the same name starring Alicia Silverstone, is about a lovable little anxious kid named Cole, who's in love with his babysitter, Bee. He has a hard time fitting in at school and is bullied, but can at least have a good time when Bee's around, even if part of the reason he's bullied is because he's the only kid his age still getting babysat.
Do your friends, do they make fun of you for still having a babysitter?
Yeah. But then they see her and they get really jealous.
One day, his friend Melanie tells him that in the movies, babysitters usually invite their boyfriends over to have sex once the kid goes to sleep. Cole wonders if that's true, and plans to stay up and see what Bee gets up to in the night. He's stunned to find out that once Bee thinks Cole is asleep, she invites a ton of people over to play Truth or Dare. And then he's even more stunned when he realizes that they've actually come over to perform a satanic ritual, and they're planning to sacrifice Cole to seal their deal with the devil.
After this, we finish the ritual. And your wish comes true.
Samara Weaving is a treat to watch as the titular babysitter, and she's quickly becoming one of my favourite horror actresses thanks to her roles in this, Ready or Not, and Ash vs. the Evil Dead. Even before she's revealed to be a villain, Bee dishes out some pretty great lines like,
You gotta punch him in the dick.
Of course, she gets even better once her murderous tendencies are revealed. She's delightfully evil as she betrays Cole, while Emily Allen Lind is charming as her foil character Melanie. Cole is played by Judah Lewis. Director McGee told The Hollywood Reporter, I just knew with Judah, he was special and wise beyond his years, and he had a sense of humor and a kindness and an empathy. It's true that Cole is very easy to root for, and he makes a very charming lead. He has a sweet naivete about him that makes it amusing to watch him do things like Google what an orgy means. He also has great comedic timing. There's a bit where he tries to get revenge on his bully Jeremy, but can't manage to land the kick to his face. It's the stuff of every middle schooler's nightmare, but Lewis pulls the scene off and makes the viewer feel proud of him, even if he did fail.
Have fun getting murdered, colon cancer.
The Babysitter takes the stereotypical slasher characters, the jock, the cheerleader, the socialite, the nerd, and makes them the slashers instead of the victims. Well, except for the nerd. He's definitely a victim since Bee stabs him in the head with 2 knives. Bella Thorne plays Allison, the dim-witted cheerleader. She's a stereotypical hot dummy who comments that human sacrifice would
go viral so hard.
and quips that the worst part about dying would be losing your Instagram followers. Max is the jock, played by Robbie Amell, and he's the stereotypical hunk. Despite being a bully himself, he encourages Cole to fight back. He's a chaotic evil guy who's actually impressed when his fellow cultists end up getting killed by Cole. Even when he's about to murder Cole himself, he tells Cole that he's proud of him for trying to fight back. The joke's on Max though, because he winds up falling through the treehouse and hanging himself. It's a very fun and goofy kill, fitting for such a fun and goofy character.
You want a head start? You're to the quarterback. Life's not fair, dude.
Cult member Sonia, played by Hannah Mae Lee, is probably my favourite of the bunch. She's genuinely unhinged, erotically feeding Cole drugged cookies and eagerly telling Max to kill harder. Her sequence where she chases Cole into the crawl space is one of the tensest scenes in the movie due to her deranged mannerisms. She coos sensuously as she searches for Cole and bangs about, and even creepily pets the spiders down there. There's a gentleness to her spooky deliveries, and it hit me during one of her more ominous scenes that she's actually the scene-stealing weird girl from Pitch Perfect.
I ate my twin in the womb.
The worst member of the group, however, is Andrew Bachelor's John. He's the stereotypical black guy character. He's likely there to reference the ways horror movies often include a token black character who dies immediately. He riffs that if he were Carrie, he'd be covered in Hennessy instead of blood, and makes a pretty cringeworthy and distasteful Black Lives Matter joke when the cops show up. And then of course he ends up being the first to die after the sacrificial nerd. Honestly, the token black guy horror trope was one that was better left in the past. These scenes with John aren't the only times that jokes flop either. Before the murdery stuff amps up, the movie is just sophomoric joke after sophomoric joke. There's a tired age joke, again, maybe not a part of the 80s and 90s we need to be reminded of, an extended unfunny bit where Cole's 14-year-old bully talks about hooking up with a girl, and overall there are a smidge too many horny kid jokes. There are a few bits that are really funny at first, but then drag on way too long. For example, when Allison gets shot in her boob, John yells, "Titty gone!" And then Allison goes into an amusing monologue about how her boobs weren't done growing yet and no one will ever want to motorboat them.
I did not sign up for this shit. Ow.
Stop complaining, man. Sometimes you gotta settle, alright? I got a cousin, Chantel, titties flat, personality real good.
It's pretty funny until John starts doing an extended reenactment of what it would be like to motorboat her boobs, and then Allison continues to talk about the hole in her boob and complains that no one will suck on her nipples now. It's like, yeah, we get it. You made the joke. Then to make it even worse, the joke comes back later in the movie, when Cole pushes her off him and hits her in the boob. It just doesn't know when to let certain jokes rest, and is just another example of how the babysitter doesn't always know when it needs to rein it in. But once the movie finally shifts into full-on slasher mode, it thrives. The thrills harken back to classic suburban slashers like Halloween, The People Under the Stairs, and the OG Fright Night, and subverts a lot of the genre's typical tropes along the way. One of the most amusing things it does is take the typical police are useless horror trope and turns it up to 11. Cole desperately calls the police, but once they show up, they're immediately speared by Max. They accomplish absolutely nothing and get gruesomely demolished within an instant. In fact, it's actually Cole who brings the cult down, either directly or indirectly through trying to protect himself, culminating in his final takedown of B, with the boy driving directly into his evil babysitter. Overall, the movie is unapologetically over the top. Even Cole's crawl space isn't just an average crawl space. It's covered in mousetraps and tarantulas for maximum ridiculousness. Bella Thorne gets her head shotgunned off, a car gets driven into a house, Sonia gets blown up by fireworks. The movie is basically going full speed the entire time, and it more than makes up for some of the more eye-rolling inducing jokes.
Hey, this ain't Home Alone! Oh, shit!
The movie is absolutely packed with pulp culture references, and wears its influences proudly on its sleeve. Max replicates the Friday the 13th. When he's stalking Cole in the treehouse, there are references to xenomorphs and predators, and jokes about a blood-covered John looking like
Carrie, but black.
Personally, one of the most amusing horror movie shoutouts is when Sonia starts threatening to turn Cole into a human self-centipede, with her yelling things like, It doesn't just stop at horror movie references either. Max throws in a Seven reference when he puppets the dead nerd and makes him say,
"What's in the box?"
Star Trek and Battlestar Galactica characters are name dropped, and B and Cole share a secret handshake that's a reference to E.T. The movie is also quite stylistic, featuring plenty of dramatic slow-mo and camera tricks. It has a lot of amusing text that appears on screen, like the "what the F" that pops up when Cole finds out B is in a cult. Your mileage may vary on this aspect though. Some of the text overlays do feel a little obnoxious, like when Pocket Knife Bitches appears, and music cues like Queen's We're the Champions are almost too on the nose to really work. Still, overall, it's definitely a fun movie, even if it can be a bit abrasive or overwhelming at times. If you're looking for a mature horror, this definitely isn't the movie for you. And admittedly, if you do want a more nuanced and in-depth look at horror movie tropes, The Cabin in the Woods is probably the better choice. But if you just want something off the wall to kick back and have fun with, The Babysitter will probably scratch that itch for you.
What? No. What do you mean? I'm gonna bleed a kid? Can we just stick a tampon in her or something?
While the first movie is a lot of flawed fun, don't expect too much from its sequel, The Babysitter, Killer Queen. Despite having the same director and most of the same cast, it just doesn't capture the wild fun of the original. Cole is still an outcast, and the only one who believes him about the cult is Melanie. Cole has become more rebellious since the last movie though, and ditches school to go to a party on a lake. All the old cultists return from the dead, which is ridiculous, but does fit the general over-the-top tone. However, the new addition to the cast, Phoebe, is so flat and boring that it really kills the vibe. All she does is incessantly quote movies, which gets really tiresome really fast. The main issue with the first movie is that its jokes often dragged on too long, and the sequel commits the same sins, but doesn't have the decency to give viewers enough thrills to make up for it. The end of Killer Queen hints at yet another sequel, and judging by how things are going, the third installment likely won't be as fun as the first entry either. Luckily, it doesn't really matter whether the entire franchise is good or not, because The Babysitter can easily stand on its own. Its obnoxious energy could very well turn off certain viewers, but if you don't mind a few dick jokes sprinkled into your 80s nostalgia, this is a great movie to kick back and enjoy once you run out of candy for the trick-or-treaters. With that having been said, that's all for today, folks. Don't forget to hit subscribe and click the notification icon to stay up to date on all my content, and if there's anything else you'd like to request, please don't hesitate to ask. As always, it's been a pleasure. Niyat here with Film Comics Explained. Thanks for stopping by.